Awesome. So I guess we'll get started. Um, Happy Thursday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone here, depending on where you are. And welcome to the final analytics tug of 2025. We got a lot of great stuff coming for you. And a few housekeeping items. Essentially, we're a monthly tug. It's virtual, and part of what makes us different, essentially, we're all about analytics and Tableau. And so, essentially, we are going over. We usually go over a bunch of features. If new things are coming in, the community of Tableau experts are going to come talk to us. We got people coming through all the time, professionals all over the globe. So there's a lot to see here. I recommend you definitely, check out that QR code. You can find us on Bevy. You can also find us on the forums. This tug is hosted by three people. We got Annabelle Rincon, who isn't here right now. She's having a fantastic time on vacation. And so, we wish her well. We also have Prasan, a database manager at Emirates MBD. And we have myself, a database designer and developer with my business, VisSite Analytics. Annabelle, a little bit about her. She's a visionary and ambassador, and she worked as a Tableau enablement and analytics lead. She's currently available for hire. She does amazing things, and so you can definitely check out her profile if you got any references or recommendations. She'll be great on your team. She's had Tableau experience going on for over 10 years. She started, she fell in love. She got 6 visitor days, and she basically also does a bunch of other things. So she's got the enablement for Data Plus Women webinar. And a fun fact about her, she loves baking for people, specifically French pastries. And even though we haven't gotten to taste her stuff yet, we know it's good. Maybe one day we'll be able to ship some stuff out and sample it. But yeah, that's about her. Next, we have Prasan, I believe. Prasan fell in love with Tableau, and he's always been giving back. He's a Tableau ambassador and visionary as well. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's got a lot going on. He's got Tableau Buddy, Viz Diner, and a lot of that is just to help people upskill, get introduced to Tableau, analytics, et cetera, et cetera. Prasan started Tableau in 2020. So he and I, we do share the same Tableau anniversary. And like I mentioned before, he works as a manager at Emirates MPD. He's got a strong sense of community. So he's always mentoring, always building. These numbers here, he's mentored, it's way more than 500 now. He's got way more than 18,000 followers now. He loves data art. He's got 4 visitor days. And some fun facts about Prasan: he loves food, anime, cats, and apparently these are things that he can die for. So, that is some serious love we got going on there. Finally, we have myself. I'm a freelance and contract database. I work with a bunch of clients in a bunch of industries. I'm always looking to figure out, new things here and there. I also started in 2020, so it's been a while now, but we're always still learning. I got 16 visitor days now, so the community has really been supportive of my stuff, and I really appreciate that. I co-lead Makeover Monday, and I participate in other challenges here and there because I'm like, I'm really into visiting, so I'm always about opportunities to do that. Some fun facts: I'm a Viz junkie, so I'm always visiting, even if I'm not posting. I love documentaries. These days, I'm into these um, killers, serial killers, or whatever. It's interesting to see how they think. Sometimes I try to make melodies on the keyboard. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I love fitness. I love working out. That stuff, just feels good, keeps me healthy. So it's a little bit about myself. Now, a few ground rules before we get into this. Basically, we appreciate your commentary. We want you to be engaged, but please do that in the chat specifically. And then, if you had questions about the speakers, topics, or whatever the case may be, then we recommend the Q&A. That way, your stuff doesn't get lost in the chat. The chat tends to move very quickly. And the only rule we have here: enjoy yourself, have fun, no restrictions. It will be recorded though. It's going to be on YouTube. So we need your consent for that. If you're not okay with being recorded, unfortunately, you have to drop, but please don't. Don't hesitate. Send us some love on social media. Analytics Tug. You'll find us everywhere, and we are always appreciating the love from the community. And so now we've gone through the introduction. We're gonna get some speakers going. Today's agenda, we've got Tim, who's going to give us a year of learning with Tableau, essentially talking about, summarizing a bunch of the innovations in the industry for 2025, and then essentially what to expect for 2026 based on all the advancements and changes and everything of that nature. And then we're going to have Kevin and Ken, probably the most famous twins in data. We love them. We see them all the time. They're going to take us through how to do cool stuff in Tableau. Essentially, the keynote that they gave at the conference, they brought it to this TUG. So we're really grateful for that. And then finally, Lewis Yu has this amazing viz that's basically, he's going to unearth that today for us. It's called, the talk is called Sealing the Hun Moon. And so it's a combination of like anime, Tableau, a bunch of beautiful stuff there. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Prasan to start bringing us our speakers.
Thank you so much, MD. And yes, it's such an amazing lineup today. And thanks, Matt, for mentioning that heavy hitters today. Yes, we have some amazing speakers today. And first, we have Tim. You can find him on LinkedIn. He has a great YouTube channel, and he has been helping so many people out there with his YouTube channel. And he's currently working at Aimpoint Digital as a lead analytics consultant and has over 9 years of experience. Beyond his consulting work, he is also the director and creator of TN Media Limited, where he builds his professional educational brand through Tableau Tim, and has over 200K subscribers. And today he's going to talk about his year of learning with Tableau Tim. And one of the things which most of you must be interested in, you'll find him cheering for F1 racing, enjoying gaming, podcasting, lots of things. I don't want to cover all of them, so I'll hand over to Tim now. Thank you so much for joining us, Tim.
No worries. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Great. Now I'll share my screen. Let's see here. Enter screen. Boom. And can you see this okay? Yes, you can. I think you can. Okay. Good. Okay. So, Annabelle reached out to me and asked me, hey, do you mind coming to talk about everything that's happened in Tableau this year? And there's a lot, to be fair. And she asked me to sort of focus on this focal point around learning, essentially. What can we learn from this year? What features have come out this year that really matter? But then she also added a bit of a twist, which was, hey, where is the industry heading? Like, what should people be thinking about for next year and the future of not just Tableau, but in general? Because I guess everyone on here is not just using Tableau, we're using a bunch of other tools. So I took this assignment and I perused a couple of data sources in the ecosystem. There's one called the Tableau Release Navigator, and it's a workbook that's available on Tableau Public. You can Google it. And it has all the features that are available in each release. And I counted over 150 features just this year alone, which sounds like a lot. It's a really big number. We'll get into that in a minute. But it's spread across Tableau Cloud, Tableau Server, Tableau Desktop, Prep, Pulse, Next, and Tableau Public. So the Tableau ecosystem has exploded. And actually, when we just look at the feature count, it's not precise because there's lots of small things and lots of big things. If we looked at it, we'd probably say there's only like 30 features, but nonetheless, all the small things count as well. And so something I always try and do is I try and contextualize what that actually means. And I have this diagram in Excalibur, which I use as a way of sort of explaining to people the different parts of the Tableau ecosystem. And I talk about the version of Tableau that we're most probably all familiar using as Tableau Core. It's typically now known as Tableau Classic, if you want to call it that. You have Tableau Next, which I'm sure you've all heard about. There's Slack, there's a Tableau community, there's Tableau licensing. But within each of these, there are lots of things that are branded Tableau. So if you notice, everything here starts with the term Tableau. So one of the big things I realized is that Tableau went from being probably what we know today as Tableau Desktop, the product, And it's actually turned into a brand that is now synonymously used across not just the Tableau ecosystem, but actually also the Salesforce ecosystem. And so when you hear the term Tableau, the biggest sort of thing I'll call out now is that going forward, just because it says Tableau doesn't mean it's from the Tableau classical core world that we know. Tableau is an analytics brand that Salesforce have sort of stood up separate from the product. And so we'll see it being used in a lot of different places. Tableau Next is probably one of the best examples where you might know something called Tableau Semantics, which would make you think that semantics capabilities are available in all of Tableau, and they are kind of, but really it's not. It's actually something exclusively only in Tableau Next. So that's sort of the first big thing. But then there's this sort of narrative that I hear, which is, hey, there wasn't really much in the Tableau release this year. And so what I wanted to do, I'm trying something very wild here, which is I've got a survey. I've only got 4 questions in it, and I'll be asking 4 questions throughout this presentation. And this QR code should point you to that survey. I really hope it does. Let me know if it doesn't. What I'm hoping everyone can do, I'll pull this QR code up several times. I'll ask questions throughout this survey, and I'll pause briefly and I'll sort of filibuster like I am now, so that you can go to the URL and fill in the question, so that we can sort of collect your perspectives, but only reveal them at the end. So I'll sort of go through the presentation telling a narrative, and then at the end we'll see if it lines up with the perceptions of this group. So I really do need lots of participation. What I'll do is I'll also post a link in the chat. So let me just do that now. It's just Google Forms. I couldn't afford one of these Mentimeter things because they bill you yearly, and that doesn't make sense for one session. So it has to be slightly done the sort of old simple way. So there wasn't much in Tableau this year. I'd love to know what you think. If I try and break that question down a bit more, I have this sort of obsession with these slides from Salesforce. These are part of a deck called the solution deck. And the solution deck basically explains everything inside of a release. And you sometimes see it shared on LinkedIn. You'll sometimes see it shared by Salesforce staff themselves. And it's kind of been made available through the Tableau user group, the insiders user group, which sort of shows you capabilities in Tableau before they're made available. And there's a couple of things that are really sort of prominent here. Number one, the light bulb signals features that we've all asked for a long time as a community, as customers. The green things sometimes highlight the things that Tableau want to talk about the most. So Tableau Agent, Tableau Next, VisQL Data Service, those are pretty standard. But then you have the headers. You have the for analysts, for IT admin, for developers, for business users. And these headers are kind of useful because it helps you understand the personas that Tableau and Salesforce, look after, if that makes sense. When they're thinking about these features, these are the personas they're really speaking to. And I also have to sort of additionally call out that really these features only make it to the release if they support some sort of license revenue underneath. Sometimes we do have this sort of, I think, idealistic view in the community that, sometimes they just make features, for good vibes. And I think when you talk to product managers, that's unfortunately not how their performance is evaluated. So a lot of these features directly drive some sort of revenue or are linked to a customer who has a lot of revenue behind the Tableau ecosystem. And so you can look at this in lots of different lenses, lots of different cuts, but there are some pretty amazing features here. The custom themes is a pretty nice one. The recycle bin in Tableau Cloud and Tableau Server. All of these sort of small things that add up to, I think, improving what I've been calling generally our quality of life in the Tableau ecosystem. And it really spreads across the different. If I go to 25.2, you'll see obviously Tableau Next was a big thing in 25.2. It was a sort of a big sort of announcement. So it gets like a pretty big chunk of this. But then we still have capabilities in desktop and cloud coming through. And then if we go to 25.3, we also get maybe slightly less towards the end of this year. But the other thing to bear in mind is that this is the first full year of Tableau server releases at a reduced cadence. So last year, they changed the cadence from the start of the year to basically mean every other release was coming out in Tableau server. This is the first full year where we've kind of had that. And this year we've got 2 server releases. So this has been a really interesting kind of time of the year, because we'll see in a minute, the charts show that cadence has sort of disrupted the value that sometimes comes to Tableau server, but actually they are, at least on the Tableau pricing page, priced the same. So Tableau Cloud really should look like a better offer to most customers. And so of course, we're data people, we can build charts. Just went and got the release Navigator. pull the data. You can do this yourself. It's just a workbook. You download it, and all the raw data sits behind that. And this doesn't include Tableau Next, right? So it's actually naturally doesn't include Tableau Next, because Tableau Next and Tableau Pulse have a monthly release cadence, so they don't quite make it to this release navigator in the same way. But you can kind of see the progression of capabilities. And thankfully, it goes to 2019. Salesforce acquired Tableau around about that time. So you can kind of see the progression of features generally. So the narrative that I think Salesforce would sell here is that, hey, we're actually shipping more features, more of the things you've asked for, more of the things that enable you to do great things, more of the stuff that you've been sort of asking for in Tableau Cloud, Tableau Server. And even in desktop, we've enabled people like Tristan to build custom charts. We've brought color palettes, we've brought themes. We've bought the data model. There's a lot there for them to be, I think, really proud about. But equally, there's still this sense that something's not quite right, I think, between us all as we use the product every single day. And so if we sort of just look at that, and this is not a great way to see all the releases, but you can kind of see based on color, hey, Tableau Desktop isn't getting like a big chunk of these releases. Actually, it's Tableau Cloud, this massive gray block on the left. That has actually been what's been getting a lot of the focus. And so this Tableau Cloud focus started well before Salesforce acquired Tableau, and it's been a pretty prominent part of the ecosystem, but you'd expect it to continue because Salesforce, being a SaaS company, would want cloud capabilities or SaaS products to be better and to allow more customers to move to it. And then the equalization of the price should make it more attractive, therefore sort of carrot and stick. If you want server, fine, but you're going to pay the same as cloud, even though cloud is really accelerating in terms of its feature capability. And then we look at desktop, sort of growing ever smaller in terms of its proportion of the total sort of feature sort of say landscape. But I will say that some of the features in desktop, when they land, they're pretty profound, right? So they don't need as many features to be as impactful. A lot of them will save us time in our workflows, and a lot of them will be maybe quite small, but we'll all celebrate when they're there because it changes subtle things in the way that we work. The data model is a good example. It's sort of been trickle fed over the last 5 years, but nonetheless, I think it has a huge impact on how we do work. Parameters, set actions, all of those have sort of been in the same vein over the last sort of 6 to 7 years. And so if I just focus in on desktop, because I think that's what a lot of us really, sort of mainline Tableau through desktop, right? These are the features. It's a really sort of small group of features, but actually a lot of these are quite important. Some of them are subtle, some of them relate to Tableau Cloud. I've removed all the ones that typically are in web authoring, even though that's technically considered part of the desktop sort of grouping of products. Web authoring has a separate capability because, of course, it runs in Tableau Cloud and therefore gets a bunch of agent capabilities that I'm sure you've all heard about. So a lot of these are great, but it does leave us with this sort of impression that there's something going on, right? Like the focus on desktop is shrinking. And the things I care about, or the features I care about, the things I want to learn about, and especially in the work that I do, the things that I think are important aren't necessarily getting the same focus, at least in the product. And if we step back a little bit and look at the wider community, you could argue that this is also happening not just in Tableau, but across all tools. If you use Power BI or even Sigma, you'll see that the focus that they put a lot of energy on doesn't necessarily always align with sort of what we see every single day. So again, another link to the survey. This is this time for question 2, asking you, what do you think is going on? What do you think is driving this shift? And this is what I really want to start to sort of address. And the first thing I want to sort of highlight, even before we go to the industry in general, is that in the Tableau ecosystem, there's actually been a pretty under the radar transformation of the Tableau platform in general. And it's happened in plain sight, but I don't think it's ever really been called out or celebrated as a big thing, if that makes sense. And so what I have on screen here are 3 examples. Infotopics, Eric Summers, who's building some great stuff with, let's say, automating Tableau. You've got La Data Viz. I'm sure you've all seen the beautiful visualizations that they enable the community to build and professionals to work with inside of their organization. And Infotopics, innovating the way that tables work. And these aren't the only people. I come from the UK. We have the BBC, and they always have to say other providers are available, if that makes sense. And so it's super important to realize that all of these innovations have been underpinned by a crucial decision that Salesforce made when they acquired Tableau, which was if they were going to build a capability, they were also going to make the API available to the community, to developers, to build their solutions on top of them. And so this is really when we started to see a ton of APIs come into the ecosystem. So the first one is VizQL Data Service. It's not a well-known fact, but Tableau Pulse as a capability was enabled by VizQL Data Service. So Tableau Pulse came out first, then they launched VizQL Data Service. But what's not known is that actually Tableau Pulse itself runs off VizQL Data Service. And you can essentially almost recreate Tableau Pulse using this VizQL Data Service API. Obviously, Salesforce has some APIs that are exclusive to them, but it's fundamentally the same architecture underneath that. You've had the REST APIs that have allowed you to manage your cloud or Tableau server infrastructure for a long time, programmatically controlling and managing your ecosystem. The embedding API, we've heard about this for years now. This came out in version 3 about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, Salesforce needed embedding to work better inside of their ecosystem. So there's a bit of a rewriting of this entire capability to make version 3 of the API. And that has led to where we are today. And then the connectors, the Tableau extensions, marketplace has exploded with data connectors, Viz extensions, dashboard extensions. But the connectors are really important because it essentially creates one single sort of interface for you to connect with your data. It's really hard to find a product anywhere in the world where you can connect to as many things as Tableau that can connect to in a consistent, repeatable way. And then on top of that, you have a single API endpoint through VizQL Data Service to be able to kind of connect to that. And so I can already hear that I'm losing people because all I'm talking about is developer-centric capabilities, APIs, capabilities that maybe we as developers every day inside of Tableau Desktop don't interface with. We don't build with these things. But here's the thing. Over the last maybe 6-7 months, we've started to see something. There's something called the Authoring Extensions API, which in this example, BizTree are showing that they can put a prompt into ChatGPT, and it will go and build 7 dashboards using the Authoring Extensions API. It's a pretty important capability. So what this is saying is that, hey, Tableau is opening up the ability to programmatically build dashboards based on controls or prompts, in this case from BizTree. And this was showcased at Devs on Stage, so I'm not showing anything that isn't public or secret here. And it's a pretty powerful capability. And if we sort of take it one step further, we go to the next example. This is an example by La Data Viz. In this case, layout, something that we spend a lot of time doing in Tableau, it takes up a lot of time, is being, again, programmatically controlled through the same API, so the Authoring Extensions API. In this case, I think, Tristan sort of gives a name, he chooses a layout. If I skip it along a little bit, I skipped past the saucy bit. So if I go back here, you'll see it actually builds the layout correctly. It takes the sheets that already exist, and not only does it build them, but it also additionally creates a title. It sets everything up nicely. And I think he goes back and adds navigation and styling, as you can see in this example. He gives it like a full name. He generates the dashboard again, and boom, we've got something that I know would take us all quite a bit of time to do. But again, being programmatically controlled inside of the same API. And then I take one more example. This is the last example. Sorry about these really low quality videos / GIFs, but it's the best way to show it in the presentation. I'll actually kill the audio for this as well because it's playing in my ear. This is a different example. It's the same dashboard, but this time a couple of companies have worked on this. So Information Lab have built a documentation API that sits on top of the Authoring Extensions API. So essentially accessing different bits of information inside of the workbook and surfacing it really nicely. We've all probably done little hacks and tricks to do this. But this is all being done again with the same API. And if I skip ahead, they've got video embeds. And then additionally, we've even got translations, not just changing the translation in the workbook, but even changing things like filters and even the data source. So again, all being done inside of that same API. So, layout, formatting, customizations. These are things that we spend a lot of time doing in terms of our workflow. So even though we're not seeing this sort of rip-roaring pace of innovation in terms of desktop features, there is actually a lot of innovation that touches what we do every single day inside of Tableau Desktop. And so there's a real shift going on in the industry. Like, why is this the big focus? Why is everyone sort of trying to build these atomic components of their ecosystem rather than just enhancing them? And also, there's probably an increased focus on partners doing more to build features into the ecosystem. It's no coincidence that lots of the new chart types that are available in Tableau are available through Infotopics, the Data Viz, and a couple of other companies. And lots of capabilities, dashboard extensions. The ones that Salesforce doesn't feel it wants to build, those are again being sort of farmed out. And the ones that they do want to build, Sankey's, radial charts, to table, Viz extension, they will build those and bring those into the fold. And I think it speaks to the shift in the industry that's going on. And so I'd love to ask you again, hey, what shift do you think is happening? I think this is an open response field, if that makes sense. So you can go and just type in what you think, and we'll see at the end what's going on with the word cloud, if that makes sense. But I think it's all changing, and this is a really sort of like a wild thing to say. Like, everything is changing. It's not just Tableau. It's not just the industry. It's not just the way we work. It's not just our roles. Everything is changing, and it's a daunting kind of prospect. But I want to show you snippets of this change happening in real time, not just changing the way we look at products, but also the way we use tools, but also the way we think about tools, if that makes sense. So the first one is, of course, Tableau, product near and dear to my heart. Tableau is changing, not least because, of course, Salesforce is changing Tableau in lots of different ways. I pulled a screenshot of what the Tableau marketing page used to look like. It's just like 3 lonely products. Tableau desktop. I can't even remember when I last had a square screen in my life, but they did used to exist. Tableau server on Tableau online, and here they have an iPad, not even like a desktop view of it, just showing you sort of the mobile capabilities. Where at that time in the era, mobile was the big thing, so you showed a mobile screenshot rather than the actual product. And then Tableau Public, always been there alongside Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server. But really, the core product, hasn't changed much. And then you have the platform diagram that Salesforce sort of introduced when they acquired Tableau, and this hasn't really changed much. It will change, I guess, in the next sort of 2 years once Next is a bit more mature. But this is the diagram they now talk about when they talk about the Tableau platform. You always have some Einstein or some sort of Salesforce, caricature on the page, and you have the various sort of bits of the ecosystem. But it feels less familiar. Tableau Desktop is pretty hard to find in here. It's here on the top right hand side. It's not really that sort of easy to find. Things like the way we work with data prep, all of that is a little bit harder to sort of define. And then you have the latest and greatest Tableau Next, which is just a completely different paradigm almost altogether. And if you've started playing with Tableau Next, maybe you've seen my new channel where I start to sort of cover it a little bit. One of the reasons I've separated out into a separate channel is that because I do think it's a completely different product for an entirely different audience. And so YouTube suggests that you should do that whenever you meet a new audience. And so the way I explain this to people at the moment is that there's almost 3 types of Tableau customers. And this is a diagram I've actually used to explain internally inside of Salesforce why I sometimes think marketing can get confused. So you have 3 audiences. So 2020, this is the user who maybe last used Tableau 3, 4, 5 years ago. They've not really sort of kept up to date with what's going on today. Then you have a user, probably like everyone in this call, who's super up to date, keeping in touch with all the things they need to understand the product. There's probably a few things they could, missing, but it's fine. We learn things when we have a use case to use them, right? Then you have like the future vision. This is what Salesforce are constantly doing, talking about like, where is the future going to be? And this one feels the least tangible because, of course, you don't have it in your hand, you don't have access to it, and it's hard to sort of visualize. And so the 3 paths that I have below them kind of explain the journeys that people go on. So if you're starting out with as a user who's been using, Tableau, maybe last time 3, 4 years ago, you've got a bit of a different journey because what you're trying to do is understand, hey, what have I missed? How do I make the most of Tableau today to bring me up to speed with what it can do? If you're up to date like us, then you're probably thinking, well, it looks like the industry is changing, the future's changing. How do I prepare myself for new opportunities, workflows, and the way that I work? And then for a lot of people, actually, they sit somewhere in between, which is they're not quite up to date with today, but they're also, not as disconnected as a 2020 user. But generally, they sit somewhere on this spectrum where they don't recognize the product because they see the Tableau that Salesforce talk about today, the future, but they're really, you know, somewhere between 2020 and where we are today. And so to them, they don't realize the product. And actually this, I think, feels like a genuine way of talking about how sometimes in the community we do kind of get lost a little bit in an understanding that actually we're all in different places of understanding of the ecosystem, and we all use the product very differently. Not all of us have every single part of the platform. Some customers do, most of us don't. And so that changes our perspective on sort of what's available to us. And so, you know, when we talk about Tableau, I know this has been, you know, a conversation on LinkedIn recently. A lot of prominent members of the community have talked about it. Now, what does it mean when we talk about Tableau? I started this talk by saying, hey, Tableau's turned into a brand. It's no longer just a product. But if we talk about the product, really what we mean is Tableau Desktop. But if you look at the ecosystem for a long time now, Tableau Desktop has been this very small part of this absolutely massive ecosystem of things happening in lots of different ways in lots of different places. And a lot of the solutions that we use in Tableau, whilst they might start in desktop, no longer sort of end there. They actually go on to Tableau Cloud, and there are many, many capabilities that really sort of take form inside of the Tableau Cloud ecosystem, Tableau Server as well. So I would almost say that really Tableau, the brand, has sort of transcended its products by a long shot. And so we have to really look at the different parts of the ecosystem completely differently and start to sort of learn what's going on. So that's the first thing. Tableau's changing. We have to look at the platform very differently. I went to the slide too early. We have to look at the platform differently. And I think we have to understand which part of this ecosystem we work the most with and how to get the most of it, and really understand everything you can do today. Because I'm a consultant. I see clients migrating from Tableau to other tools. I see people coming to Tableau from other tools. And the biggest thing I always realize is that people migrate for all the wrong reasons, and they don't fully understand the value of the tool they have. They just don't know that it can do so much more than they're using it for. And that's sort of the biggest sort of thing. And so that's our first challenge. As the platform changes, learn as much as you can and keep up with what it can offer, and then be the advocate in your organization to bring people up to speed. Now, the next one, the analytics ecosystem is changing. This is a very simple point. I don't think I need to explain this much to everyone on this call. I pulled a couple of screenshots. So this is generally the best way to look at it. And I pulled all of these in various sort of moments in the past as I was building this presentation. The most recent one was from this morning on the left, where this chap, Tom Walting, I don't follow him, but someone I follow follows him. He posted a really interesting post. And I found this really sort of, it's like clickbait, isn't it? So the sub $50 a month analytics data stack, and you look at it and you pass it a little bit and you think you can't do that for $50. But actually, when you start to go through it, there's lots of caveats in here and there's lots of sort of expectations. But what Tom is really trying to do is thread a needle through the cheapest possible reliable analytics stack for the end user. And he's using tools that I wouldn't say are all entirely user-friendly. I've used most of these tools myself, and I wouldn't say that, you know, DBT is the kind of thing that just any data analyst can just hop into. You do need to sort of skill up quite heavily to use that. But some of these others are actually quite, you know, plausible. But actually, if you add up the cost, the annual cost, it comes up to around about the cost of desktop, generally speaking. There's other sort of examples of this, some that include Tableau, some that include Sigma. And if you follow YouTube data creators here on the right, they always have this thing, what they call the analyst roadmap, right? And they have these sort of, you know, 20-hour videos. Hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a data analyst. Those are great because you feel empowered, you learn a bunch of stuff, but actually you get into the job and you realize knowing the tools is half the job. The other half of the job is working with people, and they don't teach you that bit. So that's always the really sort of tough thing. But you can even see here that the tools and the skill sets you need transcend just one product, transcend just Tableau. And so if we then dig into that a little bit deeper and we just look at data visualization, you know, the Tableau desktop counterparts, there's tons, and they're all really good. They're not like that bad. They used to be bad. 10 years ago, if you're looking at analytics tools, there were really only 5 tools you could investigate. Back then, it was Tableau, Power BI, not even. Back then, Power BI was just starting out. Click was a big thing. MicroStrategy was a big thing. You know, today, like I've used 7 of these tools, and they're all really actually quite capable. You can generally do meaningful things on them because they all thread a needle to an ecosystem together in a very interesting way. So even if we just look at Tableau and then we look at its competitors, quite a few of these, I'll name a few examples: Sigma, Hex, Observable. They all have very capable, you know, let's say comparisons to Tableau. They don't do everything Tableau can do, but actually they're very capable. And so you have to start to explore these and understand what is the philosophy that they bring that is different to the Tableau philosophy. The Tableau philosophy, I think, is very good. It's very clear. It's very easy to follow. Some of these other tools, not so much, but they do have a viewpoint. Hex, as an example, treats analytics almost like a notebook throughout the entire stack. Sigma is all about write back. They talk about apps all the time. So that's their philosophy. Hey, if you want to be able to write back to the data source, we've got you. So all of these tools have that USP, and I think they all challenge the way that we think with Tableau. So really understanding the analytics ecosystem. Sorry, I changed earlier again. Really understanding the analytics ecosystem is super important, because I think there might be a world where we can reconfigure the tools we use, still include Tableau, but maybe use other tools to sort of complete the full version of the stack. Now, the next thing is workflows and tool choices. I think these are being turned upside down. So I just start with a very simple diagram, a typical workflow of how it is to use Tableau in web edit or desktop. I've put both because this is something that I looked at a while back. It's actually quite painful. You have to open lots of tabs, lots of windows, lots of products to kind of get your work done. But if you break it down, the components actually just look like this. You've got connect, prep, model, viz, layout, share, and browse. And Tableau Next kind of tries to do this, but it's not quite this. The important thing is the underlying assets, the things we need to do things to, and the things we need to share and move around the platform. These are really the things we control as data analysts, and we make sure we build them in a way that's reliable, governed, secure, and we can do lots of great work with them. But actually, the Tableau way of putting these together is just one way of doing that. I chose this example because Ken and Kevin on this presentation, so it was a good example. A shame they can't spell the surname correctly in the title, but that's the point for another day. This is a user, Kieran, who vibe coded something that had already been built in Superstore, and they wanted to try and see if they could vibe code. And this QR code will actually send you to the Medium article rather than the quiz, for the record. So if you want to go read the article later on, you can do. And it was super interesting. And the reason I found it interesting is because the outcome was he did achieve the outcome. You can already see it here. But it was actually the process of vibe coding and learning how to vibe code to get to the end result. And this is just a screenshot of exactly what he built. If you've actually tried to vibe code something one shot, it can sometimes be a little bit sort of hit and miss. But he built a dashboard. It did filtering. It did all the basic things we would expect it to do. And in literal terms, it did the same thing. And so when we talk to our executives about the value that Tableau offers, this is the world that they live in. They see Tableau, a product with a price in the bottom line, and then they see this, which has been vibe coded in the space of a short amount of time, kind of doing the same thing. And it sort of suddenly poses this question of, wait, if they do the same thing, why am I paying so much for Tableau? So this is what I mean by these tool choices are being upended, because suddenly the people who buy Tableau and the people who use Tableau are never the same. And they're starting to ask these really difficult questions about value that is really hard for us to all meet in the middle and understand. And I took some lines out of what they said. I'm just looking at the time. I took some lines out of what they said, and I highlighted this sequence. And I just call out sort of one of the biggest challenges I think we have in 2026, which is because of all this change and this assumed, let's say, competency of AI tools and capabilities, there is this inherent association that I think people have had with the Tableau ecosystem, that everyone who uses Tableau is exclusively only capable of using Tableau. And there's this line here, which I think to me hit really, really hard, which is a project that would have previously taken months was done in a fraction of the time, allowing the company to rid itself of its costly Tableau licenses. In this case, I think it was Tableau Server, and presumably developers too, i.e. the developers are linked to the platform. But we all know we're data people. We don't just work with Tableau. We have skills well beyond the Tableau ecosystem. So I think this is actually our biggest challenge in 2026, proving that the value that we've mostly used inside of the Tableau ecosystem extends beyond the ecosystem and is applicable to all tools and everything that's sort of coming our way. And I sort of additionally highlighted something that was really good in this article, which is, look, he makes this point here, there's part inspired, part terrified, but he set himself a challenge to vibe code this example to see if this world that this person was presenting was actually possible. And it turned out it was. And I think this was a really sort of it's not a big point. I don't think it's a profound point either, but it just highlights this thing, this association that I think is happening in the industry, where if you use a tool, you are linked to that tool. When in actual fact, we all don't just use Tableau. We use many tools. But as soon as you replace the product, people assume that the roles can go too, and that's a really sort of big challenge for us in 2026. And it's not surprising that in the end, you know, the review pretty much comes out as, hey, it was much easier to do in Tableau. It was more effort doing it this way, but actually, you know, I was quite happy with the Tableau product. But nonetheless, I was still able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. There were some limitations, but I was able to still get there. And so this isn't surprising. I think we all know this about AI. It promises a lot, but doesn't always kind of get you to that final mark, that final polish that Tableau is so good at. So really important point to highlight. And then the second bit of that is, hey, the Tableau MCP. You've probably heard all about this. This is super important, but there's something really profound that it enables. This is a screen recording I did last night. I'm running this locally on my laptop. I'm not using Claude or ChatGPT. And I've just gone and simply asked it, hey, can you tell me which data sources haven't been updated in the last month? In our workflows, in the way we think about work, we typically go onto Tableau Cloud and Tableau Server. We'd set a filter. We'd go and set it up. But here, the Tableau MCP is actually doing a bunch of things for us. It's using the REST API. It's using this AI model is running locally on my machine. It's GPT OSS 20B. It uses about 12 gig of RAM, you can see in the bottom right corner, and it finds the 7 data sources. Reality is my environment is actually quite small, so these were always going to be the 7 data sources it found, but they're correct. I went through, checked everything, and it was correct. Nothing here was incorrect, because it's using AI to understand the question, and it's using the APIs to be precise about the kind of query it's going to do. So that interchange between using AI to get the work done, but also being accurate and reliable kind of comes together through the Tableau MCP. And I think it's really profound because it changes the way we think about how we do work. It allows us to stitch together lots of these capabilities. And so having just sort of painted a very sort of maybe gloomy picture, in the last few minutes, I want to ask the question, hey, should we be worried? And what do we need to do to kind of learn more about Tableau going forward, understand the platform better, but also learn things beyond just the Tableau ecosystem? So one more question in the survey to everyone who's actually following along. My answer is, of course, no. This change just cuts across the grain rather than with it, if that makes sense. And so there's a couple of things to sort of highlight here. The biggest transformation that I think we'll see is this movement away from platforms. Everything in the last decade has been about platforms, you know, Tableau platform, the Microsoft platform, Salesforce platform. We are moving to a world where actually you don't need to be a platform to be able to, you know, execute things across different tools. So the first one is we think differently. For example, people don't have to go to Tableau Server and Cloud to access their information. I kind of sound like a Salesforce sellout because I'm just saying what they say, which is, you know, allow analytics to come to where work happens. And it kind of gets, you know, a little bit dry, but actually it's true. It is true. It is really important going forward that analytics goes to the places where people are doing work. I don't think that means Slack. I don't think that means Teams. It means everywhere else. We've seen the Google Sheets extensions. We've seen lots of other capabilities to bring pulse metrics and so on and so forth to your phone, lots of other different places. We've also got this idea that I don't think you need to buy an entire platform anymore to achieve the end outcome. You can pick and choose what you need from each platform and stitch it together in a reliable way, because pretty much every platform now comes with hooks and APIs to allow you to do things. And you can hand off from one tool to another to be able to sort of execute an outcome. So you don't have to buy everything under one roof. So when we think about Tableau, we should be thinking, hey, instead of using Tableau Prep, could I maybe move this further back into something like DBT and do my work in a more reliable, governed way back there? Hey, instead of using Tableau to build my visualizations, what if I use VizQL Data Service API and I pass it off to D3 libraries to my, you know, wonderful data engineers to build something for our intranet rather than having to do embedding, right? There's lots of creative ways of getting to the same outcome. And the very last one, we build a lot for people, dashboards and reports. We think a lot about UI, UX, but actually I think we're going to enter a world where we're also just building stuff for computers to consume. It's just the reality of sort of the world we live in. We're going to be asked to do those things alongside the work we've typically done. And so that really is the role we have to play. And if you haven't guessed, I'm using AI to create these images. We're moving from being analysts to curators. We're being charged with the responsibility of bringing together the experience of using and working with data in a more reliable way. And that changes the way we look at things. It changes the way we plan our work. It changes the way we think about what's required of us. But I think it also makes us more strategic, to the point where bottom line value needs to be attributed back to the analytics team. Like the really simple conversation I had with a customer a while back is, I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years the analytics team is responsible for creating revenue by finding optimizations throughout the business, because it's been put in charge of actually going out and doing that work through data. We have data engineering and data science teams that do that today. I think that capability will be something that explodes in the future. And so 2026, I think the opportunity is really there for everyone to reimagine their workflows. But it's not just reimagining workflows with Tableau. To me, crucially, it also means imagining it without Tableau. If you didn't have Tableau, what would you do? And that sounds crazy to say in this, Tableau user group, but I think it's super important because it makes us understand two things. It makes us understand where the real value is inside of Tableau, because you'll try something somewhere else and you'll realize how painful it is. You'll come running back and be like, oh, thank God, I'm doing it in Tableau. But equally, you'll find other ways of stitching things together with Tableau, and that will enable you to paint, I think, a much more positive narrative about the value that Tableau offers, i.e. being that sort of central place to bring your data ecosystem together. You might also land in the other place. You might be surprised. You might find, actually, I can do everything I need to over here without Tableau. And that's an important lesson to learn earlier rather than later. And so it's super important. Okay. So it's time to end my talk. I've been rambling for quite some time. I want to see what you all thought. So if you've been doing the survey along with me, hit submit. That would be great. And then what I'll do is I'll go to responses and see what's been going on. So I've had 55 responses. You guys are brilliant. I love it. So let me come out of full screen and I'll bring it onto screen and you can hopefully see it here. So there wasn't much in Tableau this year. Nice binomial distribution. Who would have thought? What's driving this change? Let me make this larger. Less focus on Tableau Core Classic. Tableau Next is the main focus. The industry is changing. Our workflows are changing. AI, cloud is the easy way to innovate for many on a scalable platform. That's a great shout. What changes are you noticing in our space? Look at this. We can use AI to summarize the response. Look at that. I didn't plan that. So increased focus on AI, shift towards cloud and Salesforce, Tableau's current state and competition, adoption of new features and tools, complexity, and other relationship shift. That's a good one, actually. The relationships between the way analytics tools work and everything else is changing. And then, of course, should we be concerned? Again, another fairly nice binomial distribution there. So there you go. No one was, of course not. That's a shame. I feel that's a little bit sad. At least I think I would have voted that myself. So unless I got the order of the question wrong, and I don't know how to set it up. So that's me. But anyway, thank you for participating. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you so much, Tim, and thank you so much for taking us through what you've been doing, but also what is there happening in the Tableau space. And I can see lots of conversations going on, and the survey says it all. I don't think I need to summarize anything here, because the conversations and people responding, that's already a great thing. So
yeah, it's good fun. I'll share this out somewhere so everyone who's participated can at least take involved. And reach out to me on socials if you want to talk more or have a conversation. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now we are heading on to our next set of speakers. There's a very funny comment out there which I tagged as well, so sorry for that, Ken and Kevin. Somebody wrote, I think the Flerlage Twins are, now more famous than the Doublemint twins from the old commercials. So you have no idea, but it was just so interesting. I pinned it out there. Okay. So before I hand over to you, I don't think you need an introduction, but I'll do a quick one. Kevin Flerlage, you can find him on X/Twitter. Also, you just need to search his name on Google. You can find all the stuff there. And he is a Tableau evangelist and data visualization consultant at Moxie Analytics. He's a Hall of Fame Tableau visionary, one of just 30 in the world, and he is an active member of Tableau community. He frequently writes blogs on his website, that is flerlagetwins.com. And if I do a poll right now, I think 100% of you must have gone to that website at least maybe 10 times. So he's a 7-time Tableau Public Ambassador, has 5 Iron Wiz top 10 finishes, and is the 3rd most followed and 3rd most favorited author on Tableau Public. Along with him, we have Ken. Ken is a Tableau evangelist and senior data visualization consultant at Moxie Analytics, and he is a 6-time Forums ambassador and a member of Tableau Visionary Hall of Fame as well. He spends his time answering questions, engaging in data viz discussions, and he is running the site along with Ken. And also, there's always this discussion around who's more cool, Ken or Kevin. And
that's obvious.
There was a bet happening on dark web. You didn't hear it from me, okay? So, but it's there. You can find it out. So I stop my jokes, the silly ones, and I'll hand it over to Ken and Kevin now.
I just gotta say, Prasan, I mean, we hung out like last week. And credit for being cool. I wasn't there hanging out with you, was it?
All right, I'm sharing my screen. Enough of that silliness, Ken. We know the truth here. All right, can you see my slides? Okay, I can't see you, so all right, perfect. All right, we're going to be doing an abbreviated version of our Tableau Conference 2025 presentation. How to do cool stuff in Tableau. You heard the introduction, but quickly, I'm Kevin Flerlage, and this is my identical twin brother, Ken Flerlage. As mentioned, we run the website flerlagetwins.com, where we have just over 450 blog posts, and I'd say 447 of them are about Tableau. We work for Moxie Analytics, and we're 2 of 30 Hall of Fame Tableau visionaries in the world. Moxie Analytics is a small but mighty consulting firm where we do lots of data-related stuff, especially data visualization. We build dashboards. We fractional data here where we're on people's staff for X hours a week or month, and then we do a bunch of trainings. We have a online self-paced Tableau beginner boot camp that will be is coming soon. And I say soon. We said this at the Tableau conference. It was coming soon. It's actually coming soon. We expect it to be available this month. So if you want to check that out, it's our boot camp, but now self-paced. On an online learning system. So you can scan that QR code if you want to join that wait list or go to moxieanalytics.com. We have an advanced boot camp coming up in March where we get into really advanced topics. I don't think there's anything really like it out there. So check that out. And then we do something called the softer side where we tool agnostic and we talk about sort of those soft skills of understanding your audience, empathy, best practices, data storytelling, etc. If you ever joined us at the conference, you know we love to take a selfie. So I think this is from 2023, I think, and then from 2024. And then last year, we were lucky enough to be on the keynote stage in front of, I think, 4,000 people or so. But if you joined us at the Tableau conference, you probably heard our stories. And I'll move through this pretty quickly. But in 2022, we really got to know Serena. Serena's the founder of Moxie Analytics. And we went for this long walk in Vegas, and that ended in what we called the infamous ham sandwich wipeout of 2022, where Serena literally stepped on a ham sandwich in the middle of the Vegas Strip and completely spilled on her back. And the next year, we continued that story. We had a few people join us, including the Sarah Bartlett. We also went for a walk. We were on the quest for a drink called a Bramble. So we stopped into a bunch of different bars, looked for that Bramble. And we, after about 10 tries, did find it. But what you may not know is that I hand drew all these characters in PowerPoint. Yeah, PowerPoint, not a great tool to be drawing characters, but I hand drew every character. And I also animated every character in Tableau or in PowerPoint. So the characters plus some squiggly lines and a background turned into us walking down the Vegas Strip. Pure silliness, right? But this is likely hundreds of hours of work between a couple years worth of presentations. In just the opening, not even the tips and tricks, I probably spent like 300 or 400 hours on here, and that's probably an actual estimate, an actual figure. And the reason I bring that up, and I've got to share with sound, so I probably need to stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Where are you at? I screwed it up already. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see. Share with sound. Is that an option? I hope so. Yes, there we go. Sorry about that. Can you confirm somebody verbally that you can see my slides now again? Ken?
We can see the video.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to play. So after all that work, all that time spent building this silliness, we were interviewed by Tableau, and this is what it says. Let me know if you cannot hear the audio.
All right, so if you didn't make it to their packed session here at Tableau Conference,
Oh, sorry.
Ken and Kevin have brought some bonus cool tips just for our online audience. So Ken, where are we starting?
Well, Kevin spent so much time with his PowerPoint puppet show that we had to cut a bunch of my favorite PowerPoint puppet shows. PowerPoint puppet shows.
So yeah, he took my hundreds of hours of work and relegated it to a PowerPoint puppet show. So I was pretty sad. I came down from this conference, Tableau Conference high, to being very sad about Ken's disgusting words. And well, a lot of therapy, probably about 6.5 months worth of therapy. And I learned that I didn't need to let Ken's disgusting words dictate my happiness. And so I decided to, lean into the whole puppet show thing. So this is what I did last year at the Tableau Conference on the keynote stage in front of 4,000 people. I'll play this little clip.
And I decided, well, I'm not going to let Ken's disgusting words dictate my happiness. And so instead of doing that, I thought maybe I'd just sort of lean into this whole puppet show thing.
Oh God, no, don't.
And I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Keith Flerlage, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, Kevin. You not going to say hi to Ken? I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. You still upset about that whole puppet show comment? Well, yeah. Ken Flerlage is a dummy.
Oh, that's not very nice.
That's not very nice. Well, Keith, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody here? Sure. My name is Keith Flerlage. I run a website. It's on the back of the shirt. It's called KenFlerlageIsADummy.com, where I have about 450 blog posts, and every single one of them is about how Ken Flerlage is a dummy.
All right. That's pure silliness. You want to see the rest? I'll show you a link here in a second where you can get the recording, but we're going to get to some tips and tricks. We are going to do a slightly abbreviated version, so we're going to cut some stuff, but we'll do some tips, some tricks, some techniques. We're going to move fast, and we cut some of it, so you're not going to see it all, but you can go to Salesforce Plus or Tableau's YouTube page to see the full live video from the Tableau Conference, or in the related content with links to those videos as well at flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2025. Most of these tips are ours, but we did get tips from other people. We want to say thank you to those people specifically and our incredible community. So with that, I'm going to jump into Tableau, and I'm going to start with some cool technique stuff. I'm going to skip one of those. I usually do 2 techniques. I'm going to skip one of them. One of them talks about this and how I built these sort of what I call variable offsets. We can take a bar chart and we can actually have these offset lines so that they're not jammed on top of each other. If you want to see how to do that, check out the video. But I'm going to start off with a cool technique called having your pie and eat it too. So we are visualizing the Rocky movies, the percentage of box office revenue. This is not Rocky. This is off-brand Rocky. Didn't want to get in trouble with any some sort of copyright infringement. So this is off-brand Rocky. In the Rocky movies, we want to visualize percentage of box office revenue. We see the actual dollars, but we have a percent right next to it. So if we want to visualize percentage of box office revenues, well, what's our natural first step? Well, we'll throw it in a pie chart, right? Pie chart does a lot of really good things, even though it's kind of not something that people tend to love in data viz, but it is valuable in a lot of ways. We get this quick understanding of it being part to whole, right? We understand that this whole and that the individual Rocky movies make up a part of that. We can make some quick estimations. I think if you looked at the blue, the pink, the yellow, that you could tell pretty quickly that those are around 25%. This is slightly less than 25%. We could probably estimate that with a pretty high, pretty close to getting that estimated without those labels being there. The biggest problem is, well, the color. You have to use color in the pie chart. I don't think those colors go very well with Rocky. And then the comparisons are very hard to make. It is, without the labels, it's impossible really to tell which one of these is larger. So not sure I love this. So the next step I think through, and this is what I did throughout my career of building dashboards, is let's just make it a bar chart, right? Bar chart does a lot of good things. I get rid of color. That's great. The bar, the length is easy to compare. So even these ones that are very similar, it's very, very obvious to see that Rocky IV was higher than the rest. And they look much higher than this one where they did it before in the pie chart. I do think there are certainly problems with this. Again, we're looking at percentage of box office revenues. So when we look at a bar chart, we do not think part to whole. That is not, we're just thinking, straight measurements, right? We're not thinking about this as part to whole. And if I remove these percentages and you tried to estimate the size of this bar compared to these other bars, I'll bet you are not very close, right? Where with the pie, we can tell that this is almost a quarter. It's much harder to do that when we're looking at 5 different bars. So I like to build something I call having my pie and eat it too. So this is going to be a combination of the pie and the bar chart, right? So the bar chart on the right shows the actual values. The length allows us to make very precise comparisons. And then the pie charts and the percentages on the left allow us to understand that this is part to whole, and then we can make those quick estimates with the slices of the pie. So let's build this. I'm going to start off with the bar chart and the raw revenue figures, and I'll probably screw something up along the way, but just bear with me. So I'm going to start by duplicating this and changing this to a pie mark. Let's move this down. I'm going to make it a percent of total. I just want to label the percentage, and I'm going to make this discrete. Okay. And I think I've already screwed something up. What did I screw up already? Let's do quick table percent of total here. Let's move it down here. Oh boy, Kev. Here we go. I've only done this like a million times. All right. So let's format this. We don't need precision down to 10 decimal points. All right. So, and then let's just make this red. All right. So now we see that Rocky represents 23.7%, but our pie chart is showing just this big number. I'm not really sure what that is. Let's change this to a percent of total. So we have this as well. And format this in percentage. Okay. So we see that 23.7% for Rocky, but the pie chart just showing this big red circle, right? I'm not splitting this by anything. What I really need is, I understand that there's 23.7% associated with this movie. I need to know, I need something to represent the other half, the other remaining part of the 100%, the 76.3%. So how will we do that? Well, we could just take 100% minus this to get that figure. All right. How are we going to do that? 100% is the same as 1. I'm going to just show you this. We're just going to take 1 minus this percentage that we have on our view. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we need this 23.7 and this 76.3 combined on this. We can do that using measure names and measure values. So I'm going to put measure values on angle. I'm going to just drop this down to our measure value shelf. So we now have this value here, the 1 minus that value here. Let's get rid of the rest of this stuff. I'm going to put measure names on color. You're going to start to see some things happening, but everything's still orange. These are table calculations, so sometimes we just got to set them to compute the right way. This one needs to be set on movie. Let's make sure that this one is set as well. It is. Okay. And now you can start to see some things happening. If I give this a little border, we now have our pie charts that represent these individual percentages. From here, it's really simple. We have 2 different sheets. I would not recommend doing this with a long list, so I think it's okay to use 2 different sheets as long as we're not scrolling. But I can put out my pie charts. I can put out my bar charts. I would turn off the sort controls on all these, by the way. Let's get rid of the header, or excuse me, the title. Then let's get rid of the header. And with a little bit of cleanup, we have our pie and eat it too. Again, great understanding of part to whole with a quick estimate and great precision with the actual length of those bars. So, yo, audience, we did it. Ken hates when I do that. So sorry.
I literally just asked you in the chat not to do it. You're not checking the chat.
All right. I'm going to pass it over to Ken. He's going to do a couple sections, and we'll wrap up with me.
All right, see Tableau on my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to start off with I'm going to do 2 sections here, back to back. I'm going to start off with some cool font stuff. So if you were not aware, at least in Tableau Cloud, as of 2024.3, Tableau now fully supports several new fonts. Here are those fonts. There's 7 new ones in addition to the existing Tableau family of fonts. You can see some examples of all of these on here. It supports the regular weight and the light weight of these. Any other weights of these fonts would not work properly. So these are great. It gives us a whole bunch more flexibility. I personally love pop-ins, but I use some of these other ones as well. But I do want to point out one thing you want to be really, really careful about when you're choosing a font for your workbook, where you've never had to worry about this with Tableau, the Tableau font before. And that is these types of figures. So some of these fonts are proportional figures and some of these are tabular figures. So this only applies to the numbers here. But I think you can kind of see what the difference between these is. If I put some lines in, it becomes a little bit clearer. The tabular fonts, those numeric characters are all the same width, right? Not all your letters and things like that. Those are something different, but just your numbers are the same width. Whereas proportional fonts, such as pop-ins here on the left, they're varying width, right? Now you might ask, well, why does that matter? Well, remember our pre-attentive attributes are kind of the key thing we're using in data visualization to extract insights from our data, things like color and size and width. And a key one is length. That's what we use with a bar chart. So when we look at data like this, our brain sort of looks at it and sees the width as being somehow meaningful. And your brain is going to start asking these questions. Which one of these is larger, right? And this actually happened to me the first time I used pop-ins in a table. I said, whoa, this 4th item is smaller than the 5th item because my brain was seeing the length as meaningful, right? It only takes a few seconds before you then sort of think about it, right? And be like, oh, no, it's just that the numbers or the characters are wider, right? But we should be really, really careful about using proportional fonts in something like this because it can cause that short-circuiting of the pre-attentive attributes, which we really want to avoid. So my recommendation to you is if you're going to put data in a column, like a table, then try to use a tabular font versus a proportional font. For the rest of your things, for titles, for descriptive text, things like that, you can go with a proportional font. So before I get out of this new font section, I just want to sort of quickly talk about, is it safe? We do have, you'll often hear people talk about web safe fonts and think that means it's safe in Tableau. Anything that's considered web safe is not safe in Tableau. I've been using this term Tableau safe. Tableau works very differently than the web. So just because it's web safe does not mean it's safe in Tableau. In fact, the only things that are truly safe in Tableau are these 8 fonts that I've listed here. If you're on cloud, all of these automatically work. You don't even have to download the font and install it. It's automatically on the cloud and public servers, and then it'll be sort of installed in the browser when you're using it. If you're on server, then you have to have 2025.1 or later, and you have to actually install those fonts on the server in order for them to work. But some great new options for us for creating, you know, better or more attractive user experiences for our users. All right, so let's do a couple of font tips here. So here we have a table, and you can see this first column is sort of a darker black, and these other ones are sort of a gray. And historically, what I would do to change these is I'd right-click on one and then change the color, and then right-click on the next one, change the color. And if you have a whole bunch of columns, this takes forever. But there's a much quicker way to do this. If we go to Format and Font, we get our font options for this worksheet. If I change this header, this pane font, you'll see that it'll change basically the measure values. If I change the header, it'll change everything else, right? Our dimensions and our column headers. Obviously, it changed tooltip and title, it'll change those. But if I just want everything to sync up, all I have to do is just change the worksheet font, and everything will be that same font. I'm going to undo that just so I don't break anything else in my workbook. Here we have a highlight table, and I don't know if you've run into this, but highlight tables, the font color should be adjusting to create contrast with the background, right? So these darker squares, these darker rectangles should have white text on them. But for some reason, this seems to have broken in Tableau several years ago, and I wanted to figure out what is going on with this. So I kind of went down this whole big rabbit hole of trying to figure this out. And I want to share what I found. So first of all, first thing to do, if you see this, is to make sure that your font color is set to automatic here. It is set to automatic, so it seems like it should be working, but it's not. So we'll move on to the next thing. Another potential issue is if your text is too big, it sort of bleeds outside of the cell or can bleed outside of the cell, and then Tableau can't really figure out what color to make it. So changing the font size a little bit to make it smaller is a good thing to try. Again, that didn't work here. So the next thing I would try is just try to, you know, sort of wipe out my sheet formatting. So if we go to Format, Clear Worksheet Formatting, we can see if that will fix the problem, and it does. You see my white text on the dark background, so that's good. So that's one way to do this, but you'll also notice it got rid of all my other formatting, right? All my different, you know, colors and sizes and banding and things like that, and I don't want that. So let's undo that, and let's try something else. So ultimately, at the core, what's happening here is that I've overridden the default worksheet font in my workbook, right? So as soon as you do that, it starts to break this. So since I've overridden that here, you would think clicking this Reset to Defaults button would fix it, right? Well, let's try it and see what happens. It did something. I see it changed all my pop-ins to Tableau, but it did not fix that one problem that I wanted to fix. So let's undo that. But I have this like sneaky suspicion here. What if I just go to this worksheet font and just change it to this red for now? And now let me click this Reset to Defaults. And for some reason, it does fix that color problem, right? I don't know why I have to change it first and then hit to Reset to Defaults, but for some reason I do. But also, it did change everything back to Tableau Book. And you know, I'm really lazy. I don't want to have to come back and reformat all this again, and I'm afraid to just break it again, right? So let's see if we can find a simpler solution to that. Let's go all the way back. Notice this little circle, this little bullet point next to this setting. That just means that I've overridden it, right? So one would think if I click on this and get rid of it, it will reset it back to the default color. Let's do that. And that does absolutely nothing. I don't know what that did, but it didn't seem to do anything. Let's undo this. But in my brain, I'm thinking of that stupid little thing we did a second ago. And I wonder, oh, let's try this. Let's change the color. And now let's click the X. And boom, there we go. Exactly the way I want it. Didn't change all my other fonts and all my other formatting as well. So next time you have this problem, go into Format, Workbook, change the color of the font, click that little X, and everything should go back to normal. All right, so some random tips for you here, some cool random stuff. So I'm going to convince you that there is no difference between this horizontal container down here and this vertical container. They are the exact same thing. And you're going, no. Horizontal container, you can tile horizontally. Vertical, you can tile vertically, right? I'm going to prove this to you here. So I'm going to float a container onto my sheet, and let's just put a border around this thing so we can see it from the rest of the dashboard, right? I can see here, it is a horizontal container. That's what I dragged on. So let's now add a blank to this, and I'm going to change the background color of this blank to make it clear that what that is. So just again to confirm, we've got a blank within a horizontal container. Now I'm going to drag a blank up here, and of course I can drop this in to this horizontal container. But look at this. I can also drop it in vertically. I've now tiled two objects vertically in a horizontal container. Let's change the color to make this clear what we're looking at. And let's inspect the item hierarchy. We've got two blanks in a vertical container. So it turned that horizontal container into a vertical container. Now, if I try to add anything into this now, I can only tile it vertically. If I remove this here and then add something else to it, and now look at the item hierarchy, it's back to a horizontal container. So ultimately what's happening here is anytime you drag a container on there, you can tile it however you want, whether it's a vertical container or a horizontal container. It doesn't actually become a vertical or horizontal container until you tile two objects in there, choose the way they're going to be tiled, and then from there on out, you can only tile them that way. So next time you need a container, don't worry about picking the right one. Just grab one, pull it out, tile it however you ever want, and it'll become the type of container you need. Okay, here we have a table, and we can see these null dates in here. And, you know, we're all data people, right? So we know what that means, but your end users are going to get confused by that. I can almost guarantee you that what does null mean, right? It's not a term that they use all that often. So I would like for this to just display as like, you know, blank or something like that, right? So what do you do when you want to do that? You probably use an alias. So we right click and go to alias, but we can't alias this. We can't alias it because it's a date. We can only alias string values. So historically, what I would do in this case is create a calculated field. You know, it's basically just converts that date into a string value in this format, and then we drag that on there, and that kind of works. But this is going to sort as a string. So it's going to sort by the month first, and then the day, and then the year. And you don't want that. You want it to sort it actually based on you know, on the year first, and then the month, and then the day. So what I would then often do then is just do a year, month, day format, which is kind of awkward, but at least it sorts properly, right? Well, there's a much better way to do this, cool little technique, and I'll show you this now. What we're going to do is temporarily change the data type of that date field to string. And now, because it's a string, we can do an alias. So let's edit the alias. I'm just going to do a space in there. And now we change it back to a date, and it keeps that alias in there. And but it's still a date, and we can sort it and use it as a date. So pretty cool little trick. While we're here, this table has these measures here, and you know, often what your users will want to do, they're used to, you know, Excel and things like that. They might just want to sort, you know, this profit table by the profit, right? So they're clicking the little sort button, and they're clicking it, and it's not doing anything. And I know you have run into this before. I remember running into it all the time and getting so frustrated. And again, I got so frustrated I had to figure out what was going on, right? So if we scroll down, we'll see what's happening. Actually, we see Harry Olson here has 5 different customer names. Now let's watch Harry Olson here as we sort these different options. So look at it when we do this. So now it's sorted descending, and now we're going to sort ascending, and then it just goes back to alphabetical. So it just cycles through those sorts. But it's doing that within Harry Olson, within that customer name. It's doing that for all of these other ones as well. It's sorting these as a nested sort within each customer name. But because each of these customer names only has one customer ID, you don't really see these moving at all. What we want to do is make sure that we're sorting every row as a unique row within the table as a whole. And to do that, we need that first field on our rows to be a unique field. So what we're going to do is create a pseudo unique ID here. Now I know each these 3 fields will uniquely identify a row in my data. So I'm just concatenating them together and putting a little separator in there to make it clear which is which. And I'm going to add this as my first column. Now you'll see that each of these Harry Olson rows now became their own unique rows. I don't want to show this on my view, so we'll right click this and deselect show header. And now watch when I click the sort button, it'll sort the entire table as a whole. Much better user experience, much more natural user experience. Okay, one last tip for you all. Here we have a set of data. We all mostly work in business, right? And our data is changing on a day-to-day basis. And we probably have extract refreshes scheduled on cloud or server to update that data, right? So we've built a sheet here, and we've got some dates, and we might want our users to be able to filter on these dates, right? So we add a filter and we choose a range of dates, and then we show that filter on here, right? And then we publish it, and we schedule our data to refresh on an extract refresh, right? So let's just sort of mimic what will happen when that data gets refreshed. Now, I know there's more data in here, so I should see that data pop up on my view when I refresh this extract. So let's refresh this, and I think it refreshed. It was quick, but no new data, right? But if we look at our filter here, we can see this thing moved over to the left, right? If I drag this over now, I can see my new data. But think about this from an end user standpoint. Anytime they open that workbook, it's only showing through that last data when you published it, right? And they have to come and drag that every single time. Ideally, what we want is for it to automatically, for its default to show everything, and then the users can change that filter. But with that range filter, it doesn't work that way, right? So there's a couple different ways for dealing with this. We could use a discrete field, and there's some ways for that. But ultimately, the way I've always handled this is using parameters. So I create a start date parameter here. Take a look at this. And then we create an end date parameter. And what we want to happen is for those to be automatically updated to the first day in the data set and the last day in the data set. So we use a fixed level of detail calculation because we need it to be viz independent. And so that's the one for the first. We also have one for the last. And then we edit these parameters. We use dynamic parameters and set this to be the last date, right? So when the data gets refreshed, it should automatically update those. The last thing we need to do is have this view filter based on those parameters. So we create a calculated field like this. Basically, if it's in between those, we'll keep it, else we'll exclude it. Put that up here, do keep. Now watch what happens when we refresh this data source. Automatically updates that end date to the last day in the data, and it shows on the view. So that works great, but it's a lot of work, and it sure seems like there should be an easier way. Well, I'm happy to report to you that there is a much easier way. Let's go back to this view that we had before where we had the range filter, and let's open this up. All we need to do is change this special, go to the special option and choose all dates. Now watch what happens when I click the refresh on this one. It automatically pushes that slider all the way to the end. It shows your new dates. It'll always do that every time that data refreshes. One key point to remember is if you're in this and you're testing things and you're as a developer and you move this slider down, it will change this back to a range of date filters. So before you publish it, just make sure you go to those filters, go to special, change it to all dates, and that should automatically work from there. And with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Kev.
I feel like that tip makes date sliders actually usable again.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm going to share a couple quick tips. We're going to be quick and a bit abbreviated, so we have plenty of time for Lewis. And then, so we'll wrap us up with that. Can you see Tableau, Ken?
Yes, can.
All right. We're going to do some more random tips. So we've got this table of category, region, country, region, segment, and ship mode. And then we have 3 different measures we're looking at. It's a lot to look at. It's a lot to consume. So maybe if I add some subtotals, this will make it much easier to read. So let's go to totals, add subtotals. And don't you think that's easier? You can probably sense the sarcasm in my voice. I think it's much, much harder to read. I can't really tell what's what anymore. If you didn't know, you can actually control the level of detail that the subtotals show at by simply right-clicking on pills and unchecking subtotals in that pill. So subtotals, subtotals, subtotals. And now we've just got subtotals at the category region or the category level. Okay, so you have this nice bar chart. It's showing sum of sales by the month, by this order date, right? And so bars, labels are nicely formatted. You know, it looks like sales have been going up. So maybe I want to add this trend line. So let's right click add trend line, and I got denied. I get denied because it doesn't like this discrete axis. All right, so you probably all done this. So we go in here, let's just make this continuous. It can be continuous, right? Making continuous. Our bars become really tiny for some reason. And when I size them up as big as they can go, well, they don't look very good. So we can go to fixed. That'll make it look nice. I'm just gonna type in 25 here, get a little bit of padding between those. We're looking at months, so about 25 for each month. And then what's this alignment thing? Don't know. It's grayed out. It's always grayed out, right? So okay, we can ignore that. But now we're back in here. This just drives me crazy, so I got to get rid of this header. Not sure. There we go. Let's delete that. And what you'll notice is now my labels, now that we change this to continuous, my month labels are starting at the beginning of the bar. They're not centered to the bar. In fact, when we get down to like October, is October this month or this month? Or September this month or this month? I can't stand that. I think it's very, very confusing, especially if we're showing this abbreviated amount of data. So what can we do? How can we get this? We saw this a minute ago where this alignment thing here is grayed out. Certainly seems to think that this alignment of left is lefting aligning the labels to the beginning of this bar, but I don't know how to fix it. Actually, obviously do know how to fix it. We wouldn't be talking through this. So we can use this box that seems like it's always grayed out if we're using an exact date on columns. So if we still want to aggregate this to a month, we can create an exact date in the calculation just to truncate it, the order date down to the month. Another little tip, I'm going to right click and drag. It's going to give me a context menu. I'm going to choose this continuous one. Okay. So label the alignment's still bad, but we are now using an exact date. So now if I go to the size card, I can change my alignment to center and we can align those labels to those bars. So much nicer experience for the end user. This took me far too long to figure out, by the way. All right. Here we have just a table showing a hierarchy. We've got country, we've got region, we've got state, province. I just want to show that hierarchy. I want people to see that data. I don't care about any measure, but Tableau sure wants me to add a measure. It's got this ABC thing saying, hey, give me something to measure, and I don't want it. So how do we get rid of this? There's a bunch of different ways. You probably have done this. You can change it to a polygon mark if you want, but what you may not know is that the transitions, when you use filters and things, and Tableau does these animated transitions, those will completely be broken if you use a polygon mark on your dashboard. So I try to avoid that. We could use text. I could just do quote, quote. I could throw that on the text card. That gets rid of it, but it's still in the tooltip. Well, we get rid of that if we wanted to, and I can still select it. That's kind of weird. So I don't like that. We can change it to a circle mark and just bring the opacity all the way down, right? That's gone, but they're still there. You got these weirdo circles you can click on. So there's a different way. I don't know how many. I know Lewis is a video gamer, but he's probably played the game Contra before, or all those. I think there were Capcom games back in the 80s and 90s. Well, they had a cheat code on them, and that cheat code was up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start. If you did that on the start screen of Contra, is the one I remember, we'd go from having 3 men to 99 men, and then you and your buddy could play, and we could just crush the whole game, right? So this famous cheat code from Nintendo from years ago. Well, Tableau has an ABC cheat code that Jeff Schaefer somehow miraculously figured out, and that cheat code is right, long hold left, left, right? That makes sense to you? Well, let's give it a try. So we're back at where we want to get rid of the ABCs. Let's try it. We're going to hold the control key and we're going to press the right arrow 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to long hold and drag it to the left. You can see it's still there. You can see me kind of selecting it. But then if I hit the control arrow and the control key and hit the arrow 5 times to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the weird thing disappears. I have no idea how that happens. we can come back here and go to text cell to get it back. Again, to the right, 1, 2, 3, control right 3 times, drag it over, control left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's gone. All right, I'm going to jump right to we do have a few more tips, but we're going to skip those. I'm just going to show the very last one, so we have plenty of time for Lewis. Back in the day, just a few versions back, you probably had this frustrating thing where you have 2 different parameters, and you want to format one of those parameters, right? So you have this parameter up here with the text, the title that's on top of this purple, and it's hard to see. And down here, well, really clean. So what I would like to do is just change the title to this to be a white font. So what happens when we try to do that in the old version? We go to format, parameters, we change the font, the title to white, and it changes both of the titles to white. Very frustrating. Or maybe we want to change the shading instead, right? Maybe we'll change the shading to purple, and it changes both of them. Very, very frustrating. Well, recently, in a recent version of Tableau, they've introduced some functionality without even telling us about it, which is cool. If we go right-click format, instead of just formatting, we have the option to format this parameter or all parameters. If I choose this parameter, I can now change the title to white, and it impacts only that parameter. Again, we have this was an abbreviated version of our presentation. You can watch that on Tableau's YouTube. You can get it on Salesforce Plus. But if you go to flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2025, you can get all those links. We actually had our interview as well. We have some bonus tips in there, and we have links to all the accompanying documentation like blog posts. So with that, we just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Ken, for bringing all these tips again. And I think even if Ken is saying that you didn't need to do it, everyone was giggling over there at the keynote as well, and right here in the comments as well. I was literally laughing, and I'm glad I was on mute. So thank you so much for doing that again, and not just the tips.
Next time you take yourself off mute so you can laugh, because I need Ken to make sure Ken knows that it's still funny.
or you need to party with us next time.
Yes.
All right, next time. Well, we'll for sure see you in May.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to our last speaker and my gamer friend. You already have been caught doing like all those hacks. I don't literally remember. Okay, so here we go. So Lewis and I, we kind of like Chimdi and I, we shared the same anniversary for starting our Tableau journey. Lewis and I shared the same thing of reaching Tableau Conference for the first time. We both were there in 2023. We met there, and since then we have been great friends. And okay, so here we have Lewis Yu. You can find him on Twitter at Database Lewis. He's part of the visual analytics team in 2K Games. He just doesn't love games, but he works for a great gaming company. And never mind, he hasn't given any like that code to me to download the games for free, so I don't mind. It's fine. We are still friends. Lewis is the lead developer for many of their video games dashboards, and he also provides Tableau training, shares best practices, and he contributes actively to the global data fam as a Tableau visionary and ambassador. He co-leads so many of community great projects. He started Games Night Viz, which you should check out. There are so many great data sets that you can take in, and if you're a games lover, you would definitely love that. He has lots of Viz of the day as well. He also qualified for top 15 for Iron Viz. And today he's going to talk about sealing the horn moon. Any guesses what sealing the horn moon means? If you know this, then you're going to enjoy this. Put that in comments. What do you think? What is sealing the horn moon? And I'll hand over to Lewis. Yeah, we have some people. What is KPDH? Okay, don't make it KPDH.
Thanks, Prasan. It's a very high bar because it's coming off the presentation from Tim and the Flerlage Twins. So for everyone who stayed so long, I mean, it's been a long 1.5 hours. So hopefully this remaining half hour will be helpful for you guys. So let me just share my screen. Let's see, share audio also. Cool. Alrighty. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we going up, up, up. So good.
Awesome. Cool. So Sailing the Hormoon, this is basically, if you have watched K-pop Demon Hunters, you will be very familiar with this. This is basically the hormone, which is the barrier that goes around the world. I'll go into that in a bit detail in a bit. So this is me. I got ChatGPT to create an avatar of me in the style of K-pop Demon Hunters, and this is what they came up with. And honestly, I'm pretty satisfied with how it looks like. So I'm happy. So this is a QR code that you can scan to get connected to me. Prasan did a really good intro about me, so I'm not going to go too much into details. If you are interested to find out more about the stuff I do, I lead the video games TUG, I lead the Singapore TUG. For those who are following IronVis, I did also interview a couple of the authors, so do look out for the podcast Secrets of the Viz later this month with a feature on some of the really great, amazing IronVis entries. And without further ado, let me just go on. So this is the agenda for today. I will talk about what is exactly is K-pop Demon Hunter. So for those who have not watched the show, don't worry, I'll give you a little primer on it. And then I'll talk about how it's affected me because I'm a huge fan. I know Prasan is a huge fan as well. And a couple of other folks in the community. And I'll talk about how it's affected the world. And then I'll talk through the viz that I did on K-pop Demon Hunters. So what is K-pop Demon Hunters, right? So K-pop Demon Hunters follows a group called Huntrix, which is a trio of 3 girls, Rumi, Zoe, and Mira, who are global pop stars by day and Demon Hunters by night. Both parallels are not mutually exclusive, since with the combination of their voices and the fans' positive vibes, it strengthens and protects a barrier that goes around the world called the Hormone, which is why this whole presentation is called Sailing the Hormone. The demons on the other side tries their best to invade and steal human souls for the demon king Gima. And as a last resort from the demon world, Jinu invades the world and begins to sway the Huntrix fans towards this new boy band group called the Saja Boys. So a central thread in the story is the contrast between Rumi and Jinu. So Rumi is a half demon, half human who has been told her entire life to hide a true self to protect the world. And Jinu, on the other hand, is a human who has lived so long on the edge of the demon world that he kind of wonders if he still retains any strand of humanity at all. Where Rumi hides her demon self, Jinu tries to reclaim his human self. Their journeys move in opposite directions, but circle around the question about, what part of yourself deserves to be seen. And as the threats grow, both characters reach a point in the story where hiding becomes impossible, right? So Rumi learns that honesty is not a weakness, and her friends will still choose to support her fully, even after knowing the truth. And Jinu, on the other hand, discovers that humanity is not something that you lose by being hurt or changed. It's something that you can rebuild with people who care for you. So their story meet in a moment of mutual acceptance, showing that the line between human and demon is less important than choosing kindness and connection. And throughout the story, the group deals with the heavy expectation of the idol world. It's a very fair comparison and reflection of how the idol industry in the real world behaves. So, they must look perfect, they must act perfect, and never show the cracks beneath the surface, right? So this mirrors the real world pressure that many people feel today, right? The need to present our best selves while quietly struggling inside. And the demons become kind of symbols for burnout, anxiety, and all the hidden mental battles that adults carry with them. Now, what makes this show resonate is how gently it reveals these themes. And behind every scene is a reminder of how people survive hard days by not pretending to be perfect, but trusting the people that stand beside them, right? So this is kind of like the central theme of it. So not surprisingly, I had the YouTube music recap, and I am the top 0.4% listener. So I listened for about 707 minutes, 21 times the average listener. If I factor in an average song time of about 3 minutes, that's over 200 times, which kind of equates to about at least once a day in the past 6 months, because the show was released on the 20th of June. So it's a lot. It's probably more than it's showing here, because we had like other streaming devices as well. So just to show you guys how it looks like in how it affects the real world, this is a data set from the Billboard Hot 100 from June to December 2025. So all of these dots are like songs on the ranking from, I'm just showing like the top 10 for each week. So Huntrix made their debut on 20th of June, and you can see that none of their songs actually made it there yet. It took them about a month to get to the top, into the top 10. And this is the song. So hopefully this gives you a quick snippet of what the song is, and what has dominated the kind of like the charts. So they reached the 6th position on, I think, the 2nd week of July, right? And then you can see that upward trend of them going to the 4th position, to the 2nd position, and eventually hitting the top. And you can see that there's this huge gap in the 2nd week of October, where they kind of disappeared from the top 10. Any wild guess from the audience on who might have displaced them from the top 10? Before I reveal the answer. Yes, you're totally right. So So if you haven't heard this song, this is called The Fate of Ophelia, which is one of Taylor Swift's really, really popular songs, because it's part of a new album. So it was so popular that it kind of displaced Golden from the top 10, but you can see that that didn't last, because the week after, it actually went back to the 3rd position, and then now it's kind of hovering in the 2nd position. So the 1st position is held by The Fate of Ophelia, which is not surprising, because Taylor Swift is really popular as well. There was another really cool kind of outlier that happened on the 2nd week of December, which was last week. Can anyone guess what actually pushed everything down? You guys are good, man. So Mariah has officially unfreeze for the winter, and this is what every year happens. So it dominates the entire December top stream songs. So this is gonna happen for all the way until we reach the new year. So I'm not positive that Taylor Swift or K-pop demand hunters would regain their 1st position in the next couple of weeks, but you never know. So we'll see. So when I was doing the analysis for this, right, the show was launched on the 20th of June, right, and it took them about 4 months, right, to actually get into anywhere in the top 10. But as I was looking through the data, I was really frustrated, because I couldn't prove that they were popular, even though they was showing up on all my social media, and I really love the show. My kids love the show. And I took a look at the Spotify top streams songs, right? So what I have here is kind of like a re-index ranking of each song based on their first release date. So it shows like the first 4 weeks. So if you're just looking at first 4 weeks, right, you can see that it has an upward trend, but is nowhere as high as, you know, songs like Flowers by Miley Cyrus, or like, you know, Die With A Smile from Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. And it's really far from what I thought that they were performing at. And I looked at also, you know, just the average and max stream, just to see if statistically I could, you know, see if K-pop Demon Hunters were up there. But as you can see from the data, it wasn't there as well, right? So I started to look at other streams of data like Netflix, right? So just looking at the weekly Netflix hours, K-pop Demon Hunters was also not near the top, right? So I was really frustrated because I couldn't find the data that can prove that K-pop Demon Hunters was up at the top. And I really wanted to tell that story. And I almost given up on this idea of creating this quiz until I spoke with 3 amazing people from Australia. So meet Kimberly, Heather, and Steve, who runs a podcast called Unfinished Business. So, you know, this is a shout out for them as well. They've done amazing stuff. Just, you know, talking to authors who are kind of stuck in an idea or, you know, calculation, or, you know, how to visit certain things. So if you have an idea but you're not too sure how to get it over the finish line, reach out to them. They'll love to host you and talk you through it. So I spent like almost 2 hours with them, just going through all the different areas and analysis that I've done that didn't prove that K-pop Demon Hunters were at the top of the game. But what came out of the conversation was that maybe I don't have to prove it yet, because if we look at, like, you know, the previous slides, you know, they did still get to the top, but this was really, you know, 2 months down the road where I wasn't, like, the data didn't show yet. I was kind of in this area where I wanted to create the viz. So if I probably waited for a month, you know, my theory could have been proven right. But that's beside the point. So what I've ended up doing was that I decided to take a different angle for the viz by analyzing the differences between the kind of like the I would say the virtual fan groups, virtual groups, Huntrix and Saja Boys versus the real life K-pop groups, right? So if you are familiar with the K-pop scene, right, you know that a good comparison between Huntrix and Saja Boys would be Blackpink and BTS, right? Some of you might have listened to their songs before, some of you might not, but it's fine because the themes between the style of their songs are very similar. So if you listen to Huntrix, more or less it's kind of like the same style. Same thing with Saja Boys, right? So I started to, you know, expand on my data, getting Spotify streams data, getting the song features via API, getting the data from YouTube as well. So what I also found out was that, you know, some songs are really popular in Spotify, but not so much on YouTube, and also the other way around. So you have some songs which are very popular from like Blackpink and BTS, where they have really, really high budget music videos done, and that garnered a lot of views on YouTube, but not so much on Spotify. And then you have some songs that they didn't really have a music video, right? So the views on YouTube were low, but the streams on Spotify were high. So I needed to kind of show that contrast as well. And also the last data point that I had was from Netflix. So with all this data, you know, I clean, I put it through Tableau Prep, because some of the data points were like weekly CSV files, especially like for Spotify. So if I were to combine that manually, that would probably take forever. So I actually ran that through Tableau Prep, just, you know, putting all the CSV file in one folder and getting Tableau Prep to read the entire folder and combine that and so on and so forth. So when I was trying to think about how I want to visualize the data, I started with the end in mind. So I knew that I wanted to do something where I can put Huntrix and Saja Boys in the middle and have comparison between them and BTS, between them and Blackpink, as well as other boy band or female bands in Korea. And this actually came from a conversation that I had with Prasan from the podcast that I run as well, so Secrets of the Viz. So if you haven't seen this episode, do check it out as well. So Prasad actually ran through like, how he actually talked to ChatGPT and got ideas on like the different mathematical formulas to build different kinds of curves. So you have like the Belzel curve, you have I can't remember, for the love of God, I can't remember all the different names of the curves, but there are at least 5 or 6 variations. So some of them have an exponential smoothing at the beginning, some have it at the end, some have it in the middle, some curve through like a S variation. But this is the point. Another resource that I relied heavily was also from the Flerlage Twins. So they had this blog post on data densification, and ultimately it's all about drawing points on the canvas, right? So the too long don't read version is that hopefully I'm doing justice to the article, but what I needed to do was to add 100 rows for each actual data set and kind of smooth all of this. It should be 100 points along a path using a Asimov equation. And for me, I needed to kind of modify this for my use case. So I needed to normalize the value so that I can fit it in the map layer, because I knew that I wanted to layer multiple things on top of the lines as well. And also using dummy X and Y values so that I can kind of put Saja Boys and Huntrix in the origin and have them spread outwards. So my data set was really simple, right? So this is kind of like the core data set that runs through my entire viz, right? So I have the artist group and the initial kind of position X, and all of the different song features, as well as the Spotify monthly average and peak and so on and so forth. I opted not to go by songs, mainly because each of the groups have a very kind of have variety in their songs. So some of the songs may be kind of ballet style, it could be rock style, it could be pop, it could be dance, and the song features vary very differently. And again, some songs were more popular on YouTube and some songs were more popular on Spotify. So it's very hard to draw the comparison if I were to compare them by songs. So what I opted to do is to do a aggregation or by artist group. So just looking across all their songs, what is the general vibe of the song features, right? So this will allow me to kind of show the differences between them and Huntrix and Saja Boys, because Huntrix and Saja Boys, they don't have a lot of songs. So it's like probably like 5 or 6 songs, as opposed to like Blackpink and BTS, where they have like over 20 to 30 songs, because they've been around for like the past, I would say 5-6 years already. And then, so this is kind of how I started with. The first one that I drew in Tableau took a while, even with dummy values, because I needed to kind of understand how the curve works and how the data densification work. But this is kind of like how I started off with. And then I stumbled on my first problem, right? So the first problem was that because I was normalizing the data, so in the event that K-pop Demon Hunters were performing better than the other, better than Blackpink and BTS, they will be on top of them in terms of like the circle position. If they're below, then BTS and Blackpink will be on top. But what this ended up happening was that because the scale was from like -1 to +1, whenever it hits a negative value, the curve didn't go back to the origin. So it was kind of like a weird behavior, and I couldn't figure out how to fix the formula for it. So this was the first problem. The second problem that I had was that I had too many variables to visualize. And if I tried to kind of layer them in a horizontal fashion, everything got squished together, and it's really hard to see any meaningful insights from the visualization. So we had like YouTube averages, max, Spotify averages and max, you have danceability, you have energy, valence, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of information just to squeeze into one chart. So what I ended up doing was that I needed to kind of compress them. So I came up with my own kind of measurement with some help from ideation from ChatGPT. So I had this thing called dance energy, where I kind of combined the factors from danceability, energy, a normalized value of loudness and tempo. And then on the other hand, I have clarity, right? So this clarity was based off liveness, acousticness, and speechiness, which is kind of how clear the voice and the sounds were and creeps. I kept valence separate because valence deals with the sentiment of the song, whether it's kind of negative or positive. So that kind of sits separately from like, dance energy and clarity and so on and so forth. And for the Spotify and YouTube streams, I went with averages as well because the max could really be really huge outliers and it's really hard to kind of compare them side by side. And then the other thing that I did to kind of fix that normalization problem was to shift the axis to 0 to 2 instead. So there's no longer any negative values, right? Because I'm just shifting one number and that fixed everything. But this took me the longest to figure out. But once I got to that, this is the very first iteration of how I'm not too sure what name this chart is. Somebody can educate me in the comments, but this was the first iteration of this. And from here, I actually went on to start my design. And I knew that I wanted to draw in a lot of design elements from the show itself. So I created a mood board, right, with any projects that I start, right? So I took screenshots from the game, screenshots from the show itself, some typography, the fonts, the colors, just to get a sense of how I should structure the viz. And then my first anchor point was that I wanted to do something like this, kind of replicate that out of home advertising, because it's it's the music industry. Everything has to be glamour and shine and pretty stuff. And when you think about this, it's usually when you're taking the train or you're taking the plane or you're taking the bus, you'll see all this advertising on like concerts or like people and stuff like that. So I thought that would be kind of like a good anchor point. So I started to create this in Figma, right? So you have like each of these different pillars or display LED displays for each of the different song features. But if you ask me, this looks really, really boring. So I wanted to add in a little bit of thematic design from the show itself. So I started to look at, is there anything that I can draw from the Huntrix universe, right, in terms of the colors? So you can see that, they have this little light purple bluish kind of theme that goes in most of their scenes, right? So I kind of replicated that and created this in Figma. So you have kind of like a perspective drawing of like a stairs leading up where the display actually sits on. And then I knew that, now that I had the Huntrix glamour and shine, I also needed to do something for the Saja Boys. So I took a look at their theme as well. So when the Saja Boys came out, early in the film, right, they were very bubbly and very colorful and stuff like that. But that didn't show the contrast between Huntrix and them. In fact, they were kind of competing on the same ground. Whereas for them, what happened towards the end of the show, if you haven't watched, is that they fully embraced their demonic self, which is, you see, the color scheme started to go a bit more reddish and purplish and black. And this was what I based my design on. And then I kind of created that same structure, but more leaning into the Saja Boys theme with that color scheme as well. And funny thing is that because blue and red kind of sits in the same tonality, it was pretty easy to kind of blend both of them together, right? I can use like fire, smokes, and a bit of like kind of killer vibes typography. So this whole line, keeping you in check, keeping you obsessed, is actually a line from the song itself. So you can actually click on that and it brings you to the song. So I use kind of that to kind of imitate the transition from Huntrix to Saja Boys. The other thematic approach that I did was that because, Huntrix is sitting above or, within the barrier itself, and the demons were kind of like underground. Yeah, so this was kind of the vibe that I was going with. And when I had both of these elements, it was really easy to expand. So I just kind of expand the top a little bit with the background, or just expand the gradient at the bottom so that I can add more stuff in the end. But what I've done from here was to go back and iterate through how I want to create this chart. So this was the second iteration of it. And you can see that from the little triangles in the middle, I wanted to also show a view that combined both Huntrix and Soulja Boys. So you have kind of like the left portion is left portion as the Huntrix and the right portion colored with the Soulja Boys. But because when I was analyzing the data, I also realized that Soulja Boys and Huntrix had very different song features. So if I combine that, I kind of lose that perspective. So which is why I kind of broke them up. So this is Huntrix, where you can see their valence are pretty high, and their kind of clarity is a bit on the low side. The danceability is a bit higher. And if you compare to, that was Soulja Boys. If you compare to Huntrix, they're more on the higher side, right? Where it's more clear to hear their voices. Because the demonic Soulja Boys, when they sing, their voice kind of distorts a little bit. So it might be like the song feature scores them lower than what they score Huntrix because it's less clear. Whereas for Huntrix, it's really clear. Their vocals are really powerful, as you can see from the very first video that I showed you guys. But this is how I ended up. And then from there, I actually added more context in the tooltips. I wanted people to be able to not just see the charts and kind of see the general vibe of them comparing against real life K-pop groups, and also see in the actual values itself how it actually relates, right? So this is the YouTube view, and then I have something for the song features where I look at that individual songs to see how much has been streamed and how it compares to the rest of the songs. So before I end, I wanted to also show you guys this trailer. So hopefully this would wrap up my presentation and convince you to watch K-pop Demon Hunters over the holidays.
It's time. The world will know you as pop stars. But you will be much more than that. You will be hunters.
Hey, this is the men's bathhouse. Get out of here!
They're stealing the souls of our fans? Let's send those disgusting demons back to the depths where they belong!
Yeah!
Let's get battle ready.
I can destroy the hunters.
For good. It's time for a new strategy.
The demon boy band? They're coming after the fans.
You're my soda pop, my little soda pop.
The Sasha Boy!
Let's go get these guys.
Run, run, we run the town.
You think we're just gonna let you steal our fans? You're gonna have to fight us for them.
Yeah, this plane's trashed. Everything is at stake.
So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you so much. Hopefully that was interesting for everyone.
Thank you so much, Lewis. And hopefully, I think whosoever watched, if not, they should watch this weekend. I think I'll be watching it maybe for the 25th or 30th time, maybe. And it's fine.
Yeah, it's a staple at my house, so like we watch it like every other weekend.
It's a cool idea to do a But yeah, I think we'll need some license. We can do some movie, like watching it together on a tug. Okay, so thank you so much. It was interesting, and the whole process, I know it goes through so much mathematics, but also lots of research, how you try to build up that story. That's quite amazing. Thank you so much again, Lewis.
Thank you for having me.
Back to you, Chimdi.
Awesome. So thanks to everyone for joining. We've got to see some amazing talks from, very diverse speakers, but all quality. I personally am going to rewatch it. I'm sure a lot of us will. But overall, like we mentioned, this is our last one for 2025. So thanks to everyone who was supported over the year. We appreciate, the feedback and everything. And we hope to bring you back some more amazing stuff in 2025. Till then, enjoy your holidays. For those who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas in advance. And, we'll see you around next year.
Bye-bye, guys.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
And you're looking crazy nice, like with the whole
the new glasses.
The new glasses and yeah, the whole look.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's funny because I'm actually leaving here to go to see the eye doctor. I wanted some new contacts. I went to go see them, and they're like, you need to take a break from your contacts because your cornea is like highly irritated. So I've been on glasses for the past like 1 month now, and I'm actually kind of liking it. So I may keep it around a bit, match with percent sometimes.
Yeah. Next time I'm gonna put my golden ones as well. Okay.
Awesome, nice. You guys got anything planned for the rest of the day? Anything interesting?
I'm just going to bed.
Yeah, Lewis, it's super. It's you shouldn't even. Yeah. Did you take coffee before showing up, or you?
I have a whole flask. There's like 2 cups worth of coffee.
No way. That's so crazy. But yeah, no, it's all good. Hopefully you get some rest. The person you're just gonna relax a bit, or?
Yeah, I think tomorrow is Friday. I'll be working from home, so
nice.
Relax.
That's good. You're liking still the manager position? Still liking that?
It's a loaded question.
No, we can talk later. We can talk later. If you don't want to give too much.
Things are stacking up more than I expected. So yeah,
wow.
That's there. It's interesting, but
fair. But I mean, for me though, when I look at you, I think you seem like someone who, like, you adapt well to challenges and stuff like that. That's kind of the vibe I get from you. So I'm sure you'll kind of, you'll smoke it soon. Like, just
I'll be fine.
I have faith in you, man. I got faith in you.
Hassan is a fighter.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, it was a great one. Let me head out. Good seeing y'all. Enjoy yourselves.
Yeah. See you.
Right,
Good night.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.